Hey everyone, and welcome back. Now today I want to talk about ICP and specifically AI on ICP because we've talked we kind of danced around this subject a little bit over the past couple of ICP videos that I've made, and specifically what I'm talking about is essentially AI on ICP and specifically the inflation, deflation, all of that type of stuff. And so I want to talk a little bit about that today because basically, at least from what I'm seeing and what I'm assuming and kind of what I'm seeing the writing on the wall here, is that if we get 1, 2, 3, 4 AI agents that do really meaningful like value on ICP, think about something like, any of the virtuals, like probably the top 5 or 10 virtuals that have taken off, any of those, AI16Z, any of these that have really done pretty well, Truth Terminal, in any of those, like, if we can see that level of like participation from an app that was built on ICP, we could see the deflation or the burn rate on ICP go absolutely parabolic, which would be fantastic. We're already seeing fantastic growth. Basically, most of the like growth in the burn rate that we've seen on ICP has happened through one particular project. So keep that in mind. Like, we've seen some crazy moves happening off of one project. And so if we see, and that's why I'm essentially making the claim, right? Of if we see 1, 2, 3, 4 more projects that do something similar, we could see some really ridiculous growth on the ICP network, as well as a very tangible decrease in the essentially burn mechanisms of ICP, getting us very like much closer to either break even or potentially even deflationary. I personally wouldn't love to see ICP go deflationary, at least for like a sustained period of time. I don't know that that would be particularly good for like the intention of the ICP ecosystem. I think they've kind of done a couple of things that could potentially kind of prevent or a hedge against some of that if it did go deflationary. But in my opinion, like, I think having an ecosystem sitting close to like what Ethereum does, a little bit inflationary, a little bit deflationary, but overall kind of about net zero, I think is probably the best way to go. But overall, I think like seeing some deflation or at least being on the path to deflation for ICP is a really exciting thing to see. Before we go and talk a little bit more about this kind of in particular, I did just want to take a quick look at crypto bubbles though, just because we can see a pretty nice bounce in the market today. Over the past couple of days, we had seen some pretty decent sized pullbacks. If we do actually just move right on over, I won't linger on this too long just because, pretty nice, but we are seeing on the week still red and on the month still kind of even more red than that. If we go back and look at the chart, we can see kind of exactly this. And so let's actually zoom in on this a little bit. We can talk a little bit closer about what we were seeing. In the ICP video I did make a couple of days back, we talked about, I think we were about right here when I made the video, we had talked about how this essentially looked almost purely manipulated. I know we were kind of back at here and we hadn't made it all the way back down, but I kind of said at that point in time, like, I'm expecting it to go back down to this level of support, and that would essentially kind of complete the cycle of proving that this was manipulated. And of course, what happened? Obviously, we saw that. We are seeing a little bit of a bounce happening here. As I've said multiple times before, this is looking like a pretty decent level of support. We are seeing that about the $10 range is a pretty decent like bull zone of support, as well as a demand zone. People are kind of waiting when we see pumps. People are kind of waiting for it to get back to this $10 range before we see this kind of get bid up again. This is something that I was kind of talking about several weeks back. When we start to see large pumps like this, if we are to kind of zoom out a little bit, when we see large pumps, we always wait to see some level of support that we settle on. We were hoping that, maybe we could see it up here at like this $11 range. Initially, there was really never any point at which we would have seen this, but here was kind of the first like $13.80 range, but we kind of fell all the way back to kind of between this $11 and $10 range, basically almost back to 10 immediately. We saw a little bit of some price being held up here at this $11 range, but we've been sitting at this $10 range pretty comfortably. I think this is a point. One, I think it's a little bit psychological. A lot of people see, double digits versus single digits. So I think this is a little bit of a psychological level of support here, but also just kind of larger than that. I think we're seeing just kind of overall, this is a higher low than what we were seeing back in here. And this is also kind of like some of the highs that we were seeing in September when we did see ICP make a little bit of that push to the upside here. So the fact that we are kind of settling down on $10, that to me sounds like a pretty reasonable point to settle. There is the possibility that maybe we do see a breakout below this and maybe we start to find lows here at $9.50, potentially even all the way back down to like $9. Not ideal. We can see we did see kind of like a liquidation wick come all the way back down to sub $9. So that does definitely remain a possibility. But overall, I think we can be somewhat encouraged by the level of support and the level of volume that we have put kind of at and around this $10 support line. So, I'm pretty happy to see that. Moving on, if you are interested in trading, ICP, Bitcoin, Ethereum, anything like that, if you are wanting to trade and wanting to find potentially a new place to trade, I am still working with BTCC for the month. They are doing that 10% bonus on first time deposits. Really, really good deal. Again, in addition to the $10,000 that you can get of like trading bonuses. Also been around for 13 years, 300 plus crypto futures, up to 500x leverage. Again, I'd strongly discourage you using this level of leverage just because in my opinion, that's essentially kind of tantamount to gambling. And then also no VPN or KYC necessary. So if you are looking for an exchange, again, really, really great deal here between the 10% bonus as well as the up to $10,000 of bonuses. So, really, really strong deal. If you are looking for that, just check that link in the description. I will have that there. So now I want to talk a little bit more about what we are seeing on ICP and what we've seen, I guess, over the past 3 or 4 months or so with the burn rate. And so to start, we obviously need to look at Bob. Bob is the meme coin on ICP that's essentially kind of like, a lot of people are essentially calling Bob like the Bitcoin of ICP, right? And the reason why is because it's essentially using ICP like Bitcoin. It's essentially using like proof of work or like forcing a cycle burns is essentially to like power your miner. So of course that's the reason why the cycle burn rate has gone up so much on ICP. And it's also like it's done really, really well itself. I mean, we could see, back in early October when it released, it was sitting at 10 cents. We're now looking at up at over $1 now. We can see when it ran up in early to mid-December, getting almost to $2. It's a really, really fantastic run. It's obviously held pretty well too. So I mean, this is a really, really strong thing that we are seeing here from Bob. Of course, if we do look at the ICP dashboard, we can see a couple of different things. The cycle burn rate, obviously we saw a massive spike, and ever since then it's kind of kept a pretty solid move to the upside. We are sitting at about 1.2 trillion cycles a second average. Again, this is really, really good. If we go to the total amount of ICP burned, we can see a similar type of thing. Early September when Bob started coming, we saw this really, really substantial move to the upside, and now we can see the slope of terms of like how much is being burned. We can see it's completely changed. Much more meaningful amounts of ICP being burnt every month now compared to what we were seeing in the past. Again, this is just one project that we've seen do all of this. Now, obviously, Bob has been very, very successful. If we kind of view Bob as like a Bitcoin-esque type of thing, as cycle burn rates go up, as ICP gets more expensive, Bob itself is going to get more expensive. So this could be a one to keep an eye on within the ICP ecosystem, because again, if ICP gets more expensive, this is kind of indirectly tied to the price of ICP. So we could see Bob price continuing to go up. Probably not at this rate, because this is very, very, very quickly outpacing the growth of ICP, of course. But, I would imagine we kind of see it pegged to ICP in a somewhat like loose format. And so, things looking really, really good. Only 21 million Bob. Again, really, really interesting. A lot of pretty crazy stuff happening with Bob on ICP. But again, going back to kind of the larger point that I'm trying to make here, which is we want to see ICP do well, of course. And obviously, we've seen a lot of really interesting things going on with AI and AI agents specifically. I know there's probably very many of us anxiously awaiting Caffeine AI. This is potentially, as Dominic Williams has described it, kind of like the self-writing internet, or could be the age of the self-writing internet, which would be really interesting. I've seen some various concerns about, potential capacity to support this on the ICP network being brought up. I think this is probably closer to FUD more than anything else, just because, of course, as supply or as demand increases, supply will increase, because if there are people who will pay you for, your server space, you'll do it, right? And so, I'm not really super worried about like the capacity being an issue, at least right now. Obviously, if the capacity in the network needs to scale to meet increased demand, like that's the best problem to have, right? Usually in crypto, it's the opposite. Everybody kind of sets up their, server or internet level infrastructure and then just kind of waits for people to show up. So an inverse problem would be absolutely fantastic. And I think it would actually show the wider crypto community that ICP isn't here to play. There's so many infrastructures that have been set up that kind of wait for users. The fact that this has kind of developed its own and it has its own user base organically would be a very, very bullish thing. And so, obviously we haven't seen that yet, but I am thinking that, it is a possibility that we could see that if Caffeine AI does kind of deliver in the way that a lot of us think it potentially could. That would be massively bullish for the overall crypto space. I'd be super, super thrilled with what we'd seen so far, just because all we need is one or two or three. like I was saying, but for us to see that kind of next, slope change as far as the ICP burn rate is going. So, that can change very quickly. Of course, with the level of interest that we are seeing in AI agents, there are going to be people looking for it. So, this is kind of free marketing in a sense, just by the way of competition and narratives unfolding within the ecosystem. So a lot of really, really interesting things happening. One other thing that I'm kind of considering doing here over the next couple of weeks, maybe months, I'm super, super busy recently, so I don't really have the time for this. But one thing that I was actually checking out on the ICP ecosystem or the ICP website today, if you're not familiar, ICP basically has like a ChatGPT type of integration set up into their website. So if there's anything that you want to know about ICP, it's really, really easy to find it using their their ChatGPT type setup. One of the things that I did actually just click out of curiosity, because they allow this, you can see there's a whole bunch of different stuff that you can just kind of pre-ask questions. And one of the things is, how do I start building fully on-chain Web3? And they essentially give you like a how-to if you are actually interested in messing around with ICP and potentially how to get involved within their ecosystem from a development perspective. They've got a really, really easy process to get involved. And so this is something where, I'm not a native developer, and so this may be ultimately a bit of a waste of time, but I thought about doing a video series where I would go in and try and build something on ICP just to see how accessible it is. Is it easy to use? I know Caffeine AI is the one where it's supposed to be kind of more natural language based. And so, maybe that's something that I would need to wait for it, because this might be a little bit more coding heavy. But I thought that even if I don't actually know what to code or what to write, this could be something that could be a little bit interesting to just kind of show the wider community how easy or difficult it could be to actually go in and develop something on the ICP ecosystem. Because a lot of what we're seeing in crypto right now, I think is a little bit of people don't really know how to do it, especially when you're building on new chains. You have to learn a new language. Is the language easy? Is the language hard? How do you do all the different APIs and work within the framework, all that type of stuff. And so if we could show, that it's fairly easy and fairly simple to interact within ICP and build stuff that's very, very internet-like, so to speak, could be a really, really interesting experiment. And so, like I said, I'm super busy, so I don't really have a whole bunch of time to kind of create this video series, but I'd love to hear you guys' feedback in the comments below to see if this is something that you guys would be interested in. Because obviously if there's massive demand for it and people would be interested in seeing something like this, then maybe I can try and work it into my normal YouTube schedule of just kind of making this daily content anyway. But that would be something that probably be a little bit more longer form, take a little bit more time to produce. Definitely would not be a daily content type of thing, but it could be really, really interesting for the ICP ecosystem. So anyway, kind of going back to the AI, I think what we are seeing from ICP right now is a really, really, really strong foundation. I think that the opportunity is there. We just need to see some of these developments happen to potentially unlock on some of this opportunity that we are being handed. And so, of course, Caffeine AI is one that I'm anxiously awaiting. This is one that is kind of right in the sweet spot of what we're seeing all throughout, just not even the crypto industry, but the AI industry more generally, is using natural language processing to actually create and code stuff in an actually useful way is big business right now, right? And so if ICP can actually make a tangible breakthrough within that space, they're going to be very, very well off, and a ton of eyes, both crypto native as well as just AI native more generally, are going to be looking at ICP. And so in my opinion, that is the best case outcome. If Caffeine AI works out and it actually delivers in a way that's not just cool for crypto people, but cool for just AI native people generally, we could see the ICP price go on an absolute rocket ride, which would be super cool. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts, some of the things I'm looking at right now. I do think just kind of how the overall AI ecosystem is developing is looking potentially very, very good for ICP. So, generally when we get into these crypto bull runs, we start to see, maybe the narrative is moving towards us, maybe it's moving away from us, a lot of that type of stuff. I would say, as an example of something where the narrative is maybe moving a little bit away from us would be something like crypto gaming. We just haven't there's been a lot of I would say mini pushes or attempts to kind of move the narrative toward crypto gaming, and we just haven't seen that happen yet. And I think a lot of the reason why is because we haven't really seen anybody or any project in specific like have a breakthrough success with crypto gaming. And so we just haven't really seen kind of the narrative or the rotation come through into crypto gaming for that reason. We have seen a lot of really, really interesting and bullish developments for AI agents, AI infrastructure, AI anything, right? AI fill in the blank. And so that's why I do think that this is kind of setting up to be pretty good for ICP. This isn't me, at least in my opinion, this isn't me just on hopium. Some of you might think I'm just, on hopium overall, but I do think that this is, potentially the narrative moving in the direction of ICP, which is always a really, really good thing, when so much of crypto is narrative based. This is something I think could bring a lot of eyes to ICP. So anyway, those are kind of my thoughts surrounding ICP, AI, some of the developments that we are seeing within the overall AI and decentralized AI industry. So there's a lot of interesting stuff going on. If you did find this useful, please do like and subscribe. It really, really does help me out. I have noticed that I've got about 10,000 monthly recurring watchers, which is really, really great. But my subscribers are only about 40% of that. So thankfully I've seen, a pretty nice uptick in subscribers recently, which I really, really appreciate, but still a lot of work to go there in my mind. So anyway, also if you have any comments, questions, concerns, anything like that, just feel free to drop a comment in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything you want me to see and want me to interact with, that'd be a great way to do it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.